Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM, AM 630. WMAL.
It's 6:37 on a Friday morning, and we've got Scott Rasmussen on the phone.
Right.
They're close. They both begin with
phone
P.
poll.
And he is also the host of the Scott Rasmussen Show, Sundays 3 to 4 on WMAL, so you can tune in and hear more from him. But I want to hear about today's poll. How's it going, Scott?
Well, it's going great here on the phone, Mary Catherine.
Yeah, on the poll. So you've got, I also like NASCAR, that's where that comes from. So you've got a poll showing Cain 26, Romney 23, Gingrich 14 right now. Is this taken over a period that includes post-Cain scandal?
It's taken entirely since the story broke about Herman Cain's, the allegations against Herman Cain. And it's a change from before the scandal when Cain and Romney were tied. Right now, Cain is down 3 points from that earlier poll. Romney is down 6 points. Newt Gingrich and undecided have been the winners so far.
How about that? So no tremendous loss? I mean, some loss, but really a lot of people are sort of standing by Cain, it would appear.
Well, for the moment, people are giving him the benefit of the doubt because they don't trust the media, they don't trust the political process, they're kind of disgusted by this. But only 32% of Republican primary voters are committed to their candidate. And
that's
that means
interesting.
There's lots of room for change.
I mean, that's really interesting, that the support for these candidates is very, very shallow.
Do you attribute the Romney drop to anything in particular?
I don't think so. I suspect that at the moment it's just sorting out the field. There's only two candidates in the race. It's Mitt Romney, and I'm not Mitt Romney.
Right.
And,
Yeah, that's it.
and the governor has been at or above 25%, a few points above or a few points below each and every time.
All right, there's a possibility that could be that Cain could see a hit in the weeks ahead. Is there a certain time frame you put on it where you could say he survived this?
Yeah, when the last bit of new information comes out. I don't have any idea, of course, when that would be. I don't know what the information could be. What we see is 39% of voters nationwide, all voters, not just Republican primary voters, say they think it's at least somewhat likely there's truth to these allegations and that they're serious. 38% say no, and a quarter are saying that we don't really know. But when you look a little deeper at the numbers, almost everybody is saying, we don't have any information on this. We don't know if it's true. So when the information comes out, people may change their mind. And if it's just what we've heard to date, then he may have survived it for the short term.
Yeah, I don't know if you can figure this out. I mean, a lot of people in our audience are saying, it's not necessarily the allegations that bother us. It's just the way that he's handled it. He's changing his story, he's attacking the Perry camp, and there's really no hard evidence to that. I mean, can you poll that, or does that ever show up in your polling?
Well, it's impossible to really get a firm handle on that. I would agree with those in your audience that the campaign has handled it poorly, very poorly, in fact. And it startles me that they knew about it 10 days before Politico ran the story and didn't either get the story out themselves first or have a good response to it.
Well, Scott, it's even worse than that, because we now hear Herman Cain saying with his own mouth that he thought he was thinking about this when he ran for the Senate in 2003, 2004. Right. He knew that was going to be an issue, and they didn't have a plan. You should have had a plan even back then.
But, earlier in this campaign, whole different subject, Afghanistan came up in an early debate. Herman Cain didn't have an answer. That's okay. A lot of people don't have a well-thought-out answer in Afghanistan. Second debate, shortly afterwards, he was asked a similar question, still didn't have an answer. I said at the time I thought that was either, a sign of a candidate who wasn't taking an active interest or a staff that wasn't preparing him. It's those kinds of things on a series of issues that create concern. But on the other hand, it's almost as if the American people are saying, you know what, we know this guy doesn't really have great answers on Afghanistan, and he hasn't thought about some other issues, and he stumbled on abortion, but he can't possibly be any worse than those other guys who've driven us so far into death.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Nancy Pelosi yesterday held a big press conference and suggested that she believes that the Democrats can wrestle control of the House away from Republicans in the coming election. I've looked at every assessment of that I can find, And I just can't see how in the world they believe this case, because they're like 49 toss-up rates, and Republicans, to maintain their majority, the way I see it, would only need to win about 4 of those 49.
It's certainly hard to see a clear path for the Democrats to win back the House next year. I'm sure that Nancy Pelosi believes it's possible. We haven't seen much of a shift over the last year in terms of the generic congressional ballot. The redistricting process has helped Republicans. The only way that Pelosi's assessment or assertion can come true is if the political environment shifts really dramatically. If all of a sudden we have tremendous economic growth and the president becomes really popular, well, that could possibly change the dynamic. But right now, the odds strongly favor the GOP maintaining a pretty solid lead in the House and probably picking up the Senate.
And I got one more question, and that is the matchup of the various Republican candidates versus Obama. Who does the best in that? Who does the worst?
Well, Romney does the best. Right now he's down by just 1 point, 42 to 41. But every time we poll, one time he's a couple points ahead, another time he's a couple points behind. He and the president have been even all year. And among those who are uncommitted to one of those two candidates, the president isn't too popular. So Romney does pretty well.
How does Cain do?
Cain is down by 5 points in our latest polling. That was taken half before the news broke of these allegations and half after, and that's exactly the same as he was the week before. Perry is also down now by single digits. We're going to be having some new numbers that we'll be talking about on the Sunday show for Newt Gingrich against the president. He has been one of the winners recently. Went from 9% in the primary in September to 10% in October to 14% now. And in a head-to-head matchup between Romney and Gingrich for the nomination, it's a toss-up.
Wow.
Scott, real quick, you've polled these primaries in the past. When do you expect undecided voters to sort of settle on someone, and do you expect it to be the same this year as it's been in years past?
I don't think we'll get any real clarity until after Iowa. Voters continue to change their mind and wait to see what's happening. And what we'll also see is as we approach specific states, if there's 4 or 5 people still in the race, voters will begin to shift away to whoever the top 2 candidates are in that state.
All right, Scott, good to have you on the show. We'll be listening Sunday 3 to 4 right here on WMAL.